No, sir, I don't got no bodies. Don't put me in that conversation in any type of situation. Don't troll with it. Don't rap about it. Don't even speak on it. As Boosie just got a very light sentence in the feds, and I say beating the feds because they wanted prison time from him, but he was able to walk it down.
Pooh Shiesty just posted something on Instagram that got the entire hip-hop world talking, and Boosie allegedly responded in the most unexpected way. Pooh Shiesty captioned his picture saying, "Only rapper that has more bodies than me is Lil Boosie." And what happened next is absolutely insane. We're talking about federal cases, paid hits, a 15-year-old hitman who couldn't sleep at night, and confessions that put multiple people behind bars for life. This ain't just rap beef. This is getting federal, and the streets are watching. Stick around, because what Boosie allegedly said back will blow your mind. Lil Boosie is a legend in the rap game, no cap. The Baton Rouge native built his career on keeping it real and representing the streets harder than most. But here's what really went down. Boosie's name has been tied to one of the most disturbing murder-for-hire cases in hip-hop history. We're talking about 15 bodies, a teenage assassin named Marlo Mike, and confessions that shook Louisiana to its core. Now, Pooh Shiesty is out here trolling, claiming he's got more bodies than Boosie, and the internet is going crazy. But to understand why this diss is so dangerous and why it's getting federal attention, we gotta go back to what really happened with Boosie in those 15 murders. Let me break it down for you. Let's rewind to the mid-2000s in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Back then, the streets were hot, and Boosie was rising through the rap game while allegedly running operations that went way beyond music. According to federal investigators and court testimony, Boosie wasn't just rapping about the street life, he was allegedly orchestrating it. Enter Marlo Mike, real name Michael Louding. This kid was only 15 years old when he allegedly became Boosie's personal hitman. Yeah, you heard that right. A 15-year-old kid carrying out murders for a rap star. According to court documents and Marlo Mike's own confession, Boosie was paying him to eliminate people he had problems with. We're not talking about one or two incidents. We're talking about a systematic operation that resulted in 15 people losing their lives. The relationship between Boosie and Marlo Mike was built on loyalty, money, and fear. Marlo Mike looked up to Boosie like a mentor, and Boosie allegedly used that influence to turn this teenager into a killer. The streets knew something was going on, but nobody was talking. That's how it works. You keep your mouth shut or you become the next target. But here's where it gets crazy. Marlo Mike wasn't some hardened criminal who could compartmentalize what he was doing. He was a kid, and after 15 bodies, the weight of what he'd done started crushing him. According to testimony, Marlo Mike couldn't sleep at night. The faces of the people he killed haunted him. The guilt ate away at him until he couldn't take it anymore. So what did Marlo Mike do? He went to the police and confessed everything. And I mean everything. He gave up names, dates, locations, and most importantly, he gave up Boosie as the person who ordered the hits and paid him to carry them out. Let's talk about these 15 victims. According to court documents and Marlo Mike's confession, these weren't random killings. Each one was allegedly ordered by Boosie for specific reasons: street beef, snitching allegations, disrespect, or business disputes. The victims included Terry Boyd, shot and killed in October 2009. This murder became the centerpiece of Boosie's trial. According to prosecutors, Boosie paid Marlo Mike $2,800 to kill Boyd over a dispute. Marcus Thomas, another victim allegedly killed on Boosie's orders. The streets said Thomas had been talking too much, and Boosie wanted him silenced permanently. Chris Jackson, killed in what prosecutors described as a targeted assassination. Marlo Mike testified that Boosie gave him specific instructions on how to carry out the hit. The list goes on. Daryl Milton, Michael Smith, Kendrick Bishop, all allegedly murdered as part of Boosie's operation. Each victim had a family, had people who loved them, and their lives were cut short over street politics and rap beef. But that's not even the crazy part. According to Marlo Mike's testimony, Boosie didn't just order the hits, he was specific about how they should be carried out. He allegedly gave instructions on weapons to use, times to strike, and how to avoid getting caught. This wasn't some impulsive street violence. This was calculated, organized, and cold-blooded. Marlo Mike told investigators that after each murder, Boosie would pay him in cash. Sometimes it was a few $1,000s, sometimes more depending on the target. For a 15-year-old kid from the streets, that money seemed like everything. But as the bodies piled up, the money couldn't buy him peace of mind. According to court testimony, Marlo Mike started having nightmares. He'd wake up in cold sweats, seeing the faces of the people he killed. He couldn't eat. He couldn't function. The psychological toll of being a teenage serial killer was destroying him from the inside out. By the time Marlo Mike went to the police, he was ready to tell everything. He gave detailed confessions about each murder, provided evidence, and agreed to testify against Boosie in court. The streets called him a snitch, but Marlo Mike said he just couldn't live with what he'd done anymore. The trial of Lil Boosie became one of the most watched cases in hip-hop history. In May 2012, Boosie went on trial for the first-degree murder of Terry Boyd. The prosecution's star witness, Marlo Mike himself. On the stand, Marlo Mike gave chilling testimony about how Boosie allegedly ordered the hit on Boyd. He described in detail how he carried out the murder, what weapon he used, and how much Boosie paid him afterward. The courtroom was silent as this young man, now in his early 20s, recounted his life as a teenage assassin. According to Marlo Mike's testimony, Boosie told him that Terry Boyd needed to be taken care of because of ongoing beef. Marlo Mike said he followed Boyd, waited for the right moment, and then shot him multiple times. After the murder, Marlo Mike testified that Boosie paid him $2,800 and told him good job. The defense argued that Marlo Mike was lying to get a reduced sentence. They painted him as an unreliable witness who was making up stories to save himself. Boosie maintained his innocence throughout the trial, claiming he had nothing to do with any murders. But the prosecution had more than just Marlo Mike's testimony. They had phone records showing communication between Boosie and Marlo Mike around the times of the murders. They had financial records showing cash payments. They had witnesses who testified about conversations they overheard. The jury deliberated for hours. The entire hip-hop community was watching, waiting to see if one of rap's biggest stars would be convicted of murder. In the end, the jury found Boosie not guilty of first-degree murder in the Terry Boyd case. The streets erupted in celebration. Boosie walked out of that courtroom a free man on that charge. But the story doesn't end there. While Boosie beat the murder charge, Marlo Mike wasn't so lucky. He was convicted of multiple murders and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. At just 22 years old, Marlo Mike would spend the rest of his life behind bars for murders he committed as a teenager. The other victims' families never got full justice. While Marlo Mike confessed to 15 murders, he was only convicted and sentenced for some of them. The legal system couldn't prosecute every case, and many families were left without closure. The investigation revealed a dark underworld of murder for hire in Baton Rouge's rap scene. Federal authorities started looking deeper into the connections between street violence and the music industry. They found patterns of rappers allegedly using young gang members to carry out hits, paying them in cash and clout. In court, multiple witnesses testified about the culture of violence surrounding Boosie's crew. They described a system where loyalty was enforced through fear, and anyone who crossed Boosie or his associates could end up dead. The prosecution painted a picture of a criminal enterprise disguised as a rap label. But on the streets, the reaction was mixed. Some people saw Boosie as a victim of a system trying to take down successful black men. Others saw him as someone who allegedly exploited young kids and turned them into killers. The debate raged in barbershops, on social media, and in hip-hop forums. Boosie's family stood by him throughout the trial. His mother, his children, and his supporters maintained that he was innocent and being targeted because of his success and his music. They argued that the prosecution was using his rap lyrics against him and criminalizing his art. By the time Boosie was released from prison in 2014, he was serving time on drug charges during the murder trial. The streets had changed. The case had put a spotlight on Baton Rouge's violence problem, and law enforcement was cracking down harder than ever. Meanwhile, Marlo Mike sits in Angola State Penitentiary, one of the most notorious prisons in America. In interviews from prison, he's expressed remorse for what he did, but the damage is done. 15 families lost loved ones, and a young man threw his entire life away before he was old enough to vote. Now fast forward to 2024, and here comes Pooh Shiesty with his Instagram post. He posts a picture and captions it something along the lines of, "Only rapper that has more bodies than me is Lil Boosie." The streets immediately started talking. Was this a diss? Was he trolling? Or was Pooh Shiesty actually claiming to have multiple bodies? Here's the thing about Pooh Shiesty. Dude is a certified crash dummy, no cap. Every single case he's been locked up for involves a shooting. Let me break down his criminal history because it's wild, for real.
I want to speak on something right quick. I ain't siding with Glorilla, I ain't siding with Bro-Rilla. But I do want to say,
First, let's talk about the King of Diamonds incident in Miami. On May 30th, 2020, Pooh Shiesty allegedly shot a security guard at the strip club during an altercation. According to witnesses and surveillance footage, an argument broke out and Pooh Shiesty pulled out a weapon and started shooting. The security guard was hit and injured. This wasn't some accidental discharge. This was intentional violence in a crowded club. The case showed that Pooh Shiesty's first instinct when things get heated is to reach for his gun. Then we got the Bay Harbor Islands shooting and robbery case, which is what really got the feds on him. On October 9th, 2020, Pooh Shiesty and his crew allegedly arranged to meet two men to buy marijuana and high-end sneakers. But instead of making a legitimate purchase, prosecutors say Pooh Shiesty and his associates robbed the victims at gunpoint. During the robbery, shots were fired and one of the victims was hit in the hip. The whole thing was caught on surveillance cameras and the feds had clear evidence of Pooh Shiesty's involvement. What makes this case even crazier is that Pooh Shiesty allegedly shot one victim in the buttocks and left him bleeding in the street while they took off with the marijuana and sneakers. We're talking about shooting someone over some weed and shoes. The victim had to be hospitalized and underwent surgery. This wasn't just robbery. This was armed robbery with aggravated assault. The federal government charged Pooh Shiesty with conspiracy to possess firearms in furtherance of violent and drug trafficking crimes, as well as discharging a firearm during a crime of violence. These are serious federal charges that carry mandatory minimum sentences. The feds don't play around. When they bring charges, they've already built their case and they're coming for you. In January 2022, Pooh Shiesty pleaded guilty to a single firearms conspiracy charge as part of a plea deal. He was sentenced to 63 months. That's over 5 years in federal prison. He's currently locked up and won't be released until 2026 at the earliest. And even after he gets out, he'll be on supervised release, meaning any violation could send him right back. But here's what's really concerning. Pooh Shiesty's pattern of behavior shows he's willing to shoot first and think later. The King of Diamonds shooting, the Bay Harbor Islands robbery shooting, these incidents show someone who's comfortable pulling the trigger. So when he posts on Instagram claiming he's got bodies, it's not far-fetched to think he might actually be telling the truth. And let's not forget about his music. In his song FDO, First Day Out, Pooh Shiesty literally raps about sending hits and paying people to handle his problems. He said, "I don't even gotta be there. I just send the addy in the back end." That's basically admitting to ordering hits in a song. He's talking about sending addresses and payment to have people taken care of. That's the same thing Boosie allegedly did with Marlo Mike. The feds pay attention to lyrics, especially when they match up with real-world criminal activity. Pooh Shiesty is already serving federal time for gun charges. If he's out here admitting to ordering hits in his music and then posting on Instagram about having bodies, he's giving prosecutors more ammunition to use against him in future cases. So when Pooh Shiesty disses Boosie by saying he's got more bodies, he might actually be telling the truth. Or he might be trolling and playing a dangerous game that could get him more federal charges. Either way, the post got everyone's attention, including allegedly Boosie's. According to sources close to the situation, Boosie caught wind of Pooh Shiesty's post and wasn't happy about it. Word on the street is that Boosie said something along the lines of, "Young boys don't know what they talking about. They playing with their freedom for Instagram likes." While we can't confirm the exact quote, people close to Boosie say he's not taking the diss lightly, but also isn't going to incriminate himself by responding directly. Boosie knows better than anyone what happens when you play these games. He spent years fighting murder charges and barely escaped a life sentence. He's not about to give the feds any reason to come after him again by engaging in social media beef about body counts. This whole situation highlights a bigger problem in hip-hop culture. We've got young rappers competing over who has more bodies, who's more dangerous, who's more street, and the consequences are real. People are dying, going to prison for life, and destroying their futures over social media posts and rap lyrics. Pooh Shiesty is 22 years old and already facing serious federal time. Marlo Mike is serving life in prison for murders he committed as a teenager. Boosie beat his murder case but spent years fighting it and dealing with the stigma. These aren't video game characters. These are real people whose lives have been permanently altered by violence. The fact that Pooh Shiesty would publicly claim to have bodies while already facing federal charges shows how disconnected some of these young rappers are from reality. The feds are watching. They're reading every Instagram caption, listening to every song, and building cases. When you publicly brag about murders, you're literally giving prosecutors evidence to use against you. And let's talk about the victims. 15 people lost their lives in the Boosie case. How many people have been hurt or killed in incidents involving Pooh Shiesty? These aren't just numbers or lyrics. These are human beings with families who love them. The hip-hop community needs to have a serious conversation about this culture of violence. Yes, keeping it real is important. Yes, authenticity matters in rap. But there's a difference between telling your story and actively participating in violence than bragging about it for clout. Boosie has said in interviews that he regrets a lot of things from his past. He's talked about how the street life almost destroyed him and how he's trying to be a better example for his kids. Whether you believe him or not, at least he's acknowledging that the lifestyle has consequences. Pooh Shiesty, on the other hand, is still in the thick of it. He's young, he's reckless, and he's playing a dangerous game. Dissing Boosie over body counts might get him attention on social media, but it could also get him more federal charges, more prison time, or worse. So where does this leave us? Pooh Shiesty made a bold claim on Instagram, allegedly dissing Boosie by saying he's got more bodies. Boosie, who allegedly had 15 people killed through his teenage hitman Marlo Mike, supposedly responded by warning young rappers about playing with their freedom. The whole situation is a reminder that this rap beef shit is real. It's not entertainment when people are actually dying. It's not a game when teenagers are being turned into killers. And it's not worth it when you end up spending life in prison or getting killed yourself. Marlo Mike confessed to 15 murders because the guilt was eating him alive. He's now serving life in prison, and those 15 victims' families still don't have their loved ones back. Pooh Shiesty is sitting in federal prison facing years behind bars and still out here making posts that could add more time to his sentence. The streets are watching the situation closely. Will Pooh Shiesty face consequences for his post? Will the feds use it as evidence in future cases? Will Boosie respond more directly? Only time will tell. But one thing is for sure. When you play federal games, you win federal prizes. And both Boosie and Pooh Shiesty know that better than anyone. That's the real story behind Pooh Shiesty dissing Boosie. It's getting federal, it's getting dangerous, and it's a reminder that this rap shit is more than just music. Stay safe out there, and remember, clout ain't worth your freedom.
No, sir, I don't got no bodies. Don't put me in that conversation in any type of situation. Don't troll with it. Don't rap about it. Don't even speak on it. As Boosie just got a very light sentence in the feds, and I say beating the feds because they want.
She just posted something on Instagram that got the entire hip-hop world talking, and Boosie allegedly responded in the most unexpected way. Pooh Shiesty captioned his picture saying, "Only rapper that has more bodies than me is Lil Boosie." And what happened next is absolutely insane. We're talking about federal cases, paid hits, a 15-year-old hitman who couldn't sleep at night, and confessions that put multiple people behind bars for life. This ain't they just rap beef. This is getting federal, and the streets are watching. Stick around because what Boosie allegedly said back will blow your mind. Lil Boosie is a legend in the rap game. No cap, the Baton Rouge native built his career on keeping it real and representing the streets harder than most. But here's what really went down. Boosie's name has been tied to one of the most disturbing murder-for-hire cases in hip-hop history. We're talking about 15 Bodies, a teenage assassin named Marlo Mike, and confessions that shook Louisiana to its core. Now Pooh Shiesty is out here trolling, claiming he's got more bodies than Boosie. And the internet is going crazy. But to understand why this disc is so dangerous and why it's getting federal attention, we got to go back to what really happened with Boosie and those 15 murders. Let me break it down for you. Let's rewind to the mid-2000s in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Back then, the streets were hot and Boosie was rising through the rap game while allegedly running operations that went way beyond music. According to federal investigators and court testimony, Boosie wasn't just rapping about the street life, he was allegedly orchestrating it. Enter Marlo Mike, real name Michael Louding. This kid was only 15 years old when he allegedly became Boosie's personal hitman. Yeah, you heard that right. A 15-year-old kid carrying out murders for a rap star. According to court documents and Marlo Mike's own confession, Boosie was paying him to eliminate people he had problems with. We're not talking about one or two incidents. We're talking about a systematic operation that resulted in 15 people losing their lives. The relationship between Boosie and Marlo Mike was built on loyalty, money, and fear. Marlo Mike looked up to Boosie like a mentor, and Boosie allegedly used that influence to turn this teenager into a killer. The streets knew something was going on, but nobody was talking. That's how it works. You keep your mouth shut or you become the next target. But here's where it gets crazy. Marlo Mike wasn't some hardened criminal who could compartmentalize what he was doing. It was a kid. And after 15 bodies, the weight of what he'd done started crushing him. According to testimony, Marlo Mike couldn't sleep at night. The faces of the people he killed haunted him. The guilt ate away at him until he couldn't take it anymore. So, what did Marlo Mike do? He went to the police and confessed everything. And I mean everything. He gave up names, dates, locations, and most importantly, he gave up Boosie as the person who ordered the hits and paid him to carry them out. Let's talk about these 15 victims. According to court documents and Marlo Mike's confession, these weren't random killings. Each one was allegedly ordered by Boosie for specific reasons. Street beef, snitching allegations, disrespect, or business disputes. The victims